Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Nasa Thread. Thank you for stopping by. Today on the channel, I'll be showing you how to make this wrapper skirt. So it's basically a straight skirt with a wrap effect in front. If it's something you're interested in, keep watching and let's get right into this. So for this project, we'll be using 2 yards of lining with a matching doll face, sorry, mirror face, and then our matching lace fabric. So we're using lace, which is the main fabric for this. So it is 2 yards, but if you're using an ankara, you might be needing 2.5 yards to 3 yards depending on the length you're working with. So the first thing I went ahead to do is to fold my lining into four. That's because I'll be cutting my skirt, the front part of the skirt and the back together. So I folded this, leaving an allowance of 1 inch outward, which will serve as my zipper allowance. And the width I used in folding this is the hip circumference divided by 4 plus extra inches for my inseam allowance. So at the top, I'm just marking out this line now, which will serve as the starting line for our skirt. Now this is the down part of a gown, because this is going to be a gown. So to mark out our full length, I will just place out my half length, which is 17 inches, plus an extra half of an inch there, which will serve as my joining allowance. So I just placed out 17.5 inches out, and I marked the full length of this gown I'm working with. So the skirt part is 57. All right, so I just placed out 17.5 inches and I marked 57. Now for my inches, the length of the skirt, I want my lace to be longer than my lining piece. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to shorten the lining by the length I want my lace to get to. So I'm working with 57 inches for the full length, but I want my lace, my lining to stop at 53, and then my lace will get to 54, 57. Okay, that's a 4 inches extra on my lace. So what I just did was to mark down that, to note it down. So that's where my lining is going to end instead. So ensure while you're marking where your lining will end, add your hemming allowance to that, because you'll be stitching the down to flip it over to the right side. So we'll go ahead now and take our other measurements from this point. The first being the hip point. So the hip I'm working with is 8 inches. I'm going to mark it down, and then the knee, which is 18. So remember to mark your knee, whatever length you have from your shoulder to your knee, or from your waist to your knee, go up by 2 inches. All right, so this is what we have, and that will be our full length. So we want to go ahead to take our circumference measurement for this, starting from the waist. Now from the folded end of the skirt, I'm going to mark quarter of the round waist I'm working with this, and then I will add my seam allowance, which is 2 inches. I'll repeat the same thing for my hip, mark quarter of my hip circumference, and then add 2 inches for my inseam allowance. Now to get my knee circumference, I'm going to minus 6 inches from my hip circumference and divide that by 4. Okay, so the hip circumference I'm using for this is 44 inches minus 6 inches, and then I will divide whatever I get from that by 4 and mark it down. So I got 9.5, but instead of using 9.5, I decided to use 9 inches instead. Okay, this is the knee area, so it needs to be fitted, and I just added my seam allowance. Now I'm going to take the measurement I have around the knee and replicate it also on my full length. So I had 9 inches plus 2, that is 11, so I just marked 11 inches on my full length. So I'll go in with my rule to connect my points together. So I hope you understand how to get your knee measurement around there. So whatever your hip is, okay, divide that, sorry, minus 6 inches from your round hip. Like I said, the round hip I'm using for this project is 44 inches, divided minus 6, I have 38 inches. I divided that by 4, I got 9.5, but I decided to use 9 inches in order to give the knee a bit more fitting around that area. Okay, so you can use that, or you can decide to use exactly what you got. So I just connected my lines together. You can see what we have. This is how it look like. We're not going to be darting the skirt, but if you want to dart yours, you can go ahead and place your dart measurement, and ensure to also add your dart allowance while you're doing this. So I just went over to my back part, that's the zip allowance area. I'm just marking 1 inches throughout, which will serve as my zip allowance. All right, so it's 1 inches we'll be working with. From the waist down to the full length, I'm just using 1 inch for my zip allowance. Okay, now what I'm just trying to note here is simply my slits case, because later on I'm going to still explain this again. I just want my slits to just start from the knee to the full length. That was just what I was trying to ensure that I was marking this correctly. All right, so that's just it. So I will just go ahead and impute the same 1 inch at my full length, and then go in with, so I'll just replicate the same mark at the full length, that's where it stops, and then go in with my rule to connect my lines together. Okay, there we have it down. So this is all we'll have for our skirt. This is the front and the back together. Remember, we have the front and back together here. So I'll just go in with my scissors to cut this out. So in whatever part of this video you're confused, you can drop your comments on the comment section. I promise I'm going to give a very good answer to your questions. All right, so I'm just went in to cut out the parts I will not be needing, and that's just it. So I'm just confirming, okay, minus the 17.5 inches. I confirmed and I got the same hip point, right? So sewing just has to do with you calculating and calculating. You don't want to make mistakes. So this is what we have for our piece. I'll just make a notch to identify my zip area. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to mark out our wrap piece. Okay, to do that, we'll be separating our piece. Okay, separating the back from the front. I just marked so that I'm going to know the right side of my piece. Okay, so I've gone ahead to place another piece that I'll be using to mark out the wrap. All right, now your wrap can come from the front, sorry, it can come from the right, it can come from the left, depending on whatever angle you want it to start from, right? So I just place it down. Remember, this should be one piece. The piece for your wrap should be one piece, not folded. Okay, and then I'm going to place my front on it, and then trace the sides. That's the curved part of my front. I will just go ahead to trace it out on the piece I want to use for my wrap. I'm going to trace everywhere, so just make sure you follow your curves properly and then trace them out. So you want to ensure you also trace the top part of this. Okay, I didn't do that, and I had to bring back my fabric and then place it down before I went ahead to trace it out. This is because you need to know where this starts, like where it starts. It needs to be on the same length with your main piece, with your main skirt piece, right? So I just went in with my rule to make my lines bold. Now for the part that are curved, you're going to use your curved rule there also. So ensure you use a curved rule on those parts that are curved. Do not use your straight rules, because you need your curves um to be pronounced. All right. Okay, so we have everything down. This is what we have down after we finish doing that. So the next thing we want to do is to add the seam allowance. Now remember, for the our piece we added a seam allowance of 2 inches. So go ahead and repeat that. So measuring from the curve you drew, that's the first line you have on your piece. Just mark whatever seam allowance. Like me, I'm using 2 inches, so I'm marking 2 inches outward. If you're using 1.5 inches, mark 1.5. If you're using 1 inch, mark 1 inch. Whatever inch you're using for your seam allowance, go ahead and mark that out. Now this is necessary. It is a a necessity that you mark this. It is important you mark this because this will help you while you're stitching down this part of this wrap piece. That's the this allowance part of this wrap piece will be inside while you're stitching down. So it is important for you to add your allowance so that it aligns with your main piece while you're stitching down. I don't know if you understand the thing what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say add your allowance, okay? Add this allowance. It is important you add it. All right. So the next we want to do is to determine the width of our wrap. Now your wrap can go, like I said, from the right or from the left. Okay, if it's going from the right, it means you're going to tie it at the left. If it's going from the left, it means you're going to tie it at the right, whatever end it's going from. Now to determine where you want this to be to stop, now you can start from say the right side and then ends at the back. That's your where your zip will be, or it ends for at the left side. That's from the right to the left or from the left to the right. So the for this project, I want this to start from the right to end at the left side, so it's not going to go beyond that. So to determine that width, just mark divide your waist circumference by 2 and then mark it down. So that's what I did. I marked it at the top and I also marked it at the end. And so the waist circumference I'm working with for this project is 35 inches. Divided by 2, I had 17 and a half. So I just marked 17 and a half at the top. I marked it at the end and I connected it in a straight line. Okay, so it's the other end of this needs to be straight, so just mark it at the beginning, at the end, which are straight on your parts, that's on your wrap piece, and then cut out the excess you have. Now while cutting the excess, okay, ensure you don't cut out from your second curve, that's from your allowance. You cut out from the first one you marked initially. So you can see how I'm cutting this out. This is how you should cut it out, and it is necessary for you to make marks on this at the top, at the bottom, so that your wrap piece is not longer than your main piece. It is important. It is very important. I cannot overemphasize on this. It is important for it to be that way. All right. So this is what we have for our piece. Okay. After I finish doing that, all right. So I'll go ahead and cut this out on my other piece. Okay. I'll cut this out on my mirror face and also on my lace. All right, so first thing first, I'm going to be showing you how to cut this out on the lace. Remember I said I want my lace to be longer than my fabric. Okay, I want the lace to be longer than the lining. So I'll be showing you how I'm going to cut this out. So in case you're using a lace to work for yours, you know how to cut this out. So I'm going to use my front piece to show you, to give you details on how to do this. So I've folded my piece into two. Now know our front is folded into two. It has a center front. It is not splitted open. So I folded it into two. Then I'm going to bring the front piece. So I'm using the front piece of my mirror face because I already went ahead to cut that out. I'm going to place this out, ensuring there is no waste, that there's no excess on any side, so that it is not wasting. Okay, now I'm bringing this down because I want the lace of the mouth lace. Okay, I don't know how to put it. I don't know if it's the mouth of the lace. Yes, the mouth of the lace to be there. So I'm going to measure from the edge. I'm using the shortest part of the mouth of the lace. That is where I'm measuring my 4 inches upward. So I measured from that point upward to get my 4 inches, and I just used my free hand to make a straight line across. Then I will introduce my piece again. That's the mirror face I'm using for this. I'm going to place it down, ensuring that the center fronts are matching, that they are placed right together. Okay, then this is what it's going to look like. So you can go ahead to pin it down, right? So when cutting this out, okay, make no mistake of cutting from the down part, right? So when you're about to cut this, ensure you don't cut from the down, because that will be a total disaster. Okay, the down is part of your length. Like I said, the lace will be longer than the lining or the top face. So you can see how I cut this out. This is what you should have. Go ahead and do the same thing for your other piece. All right, so I've done that. I'm going to be showing you how to attach the lace to your doll face to put them to turn your two piece into one. So this is my mirror face, sorry, facing front. Now you can use a doll face. Okay, I'm always saying doll face, doll face. So you can use a doll face. And I'm going to introduce my lace. I'm placing it on top of it, ensuring that matching at the top. Remember the down part of this, the lace is longer than the other piece. Okay, so the top needs to match in order for you to get the accurate thing at the bottom. Right, so this is what it's going to look like. Then I'll bring my hemming gum. So this is a hemming gum. I'll be using this to gum this, okay, to iron this down. So starting from the waist, I will just place my hemming gum in between both my piece and then iron it down. So you need to use enough heat for this in order to keep it in place. Do the same thing at the sides, okay, at both sides. But then at the bottom, the down part of this, I'll be ensuring to leave at least half of an inch at the down when I finish. So I've done that. This is what it looks like. You can see they are placed together rightly. So this is the piece for my wrap. I'll be using this part instead because I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to fix the band on this piece. All right, so this is what it will look like. All right, both of them placed together. So to stitch it down, remember for our wrap piece, it's just one part that has that hip curve. Your lining, your lace, your mirror face, all of them should be facing the right side. So the right side should be facing the right side while you have the wrong side upwards. Then you're going to tuck in your lace mouth. Remember the lace mouth will be longer, okay? And then you go ahead and stitch it at the bottom, at the sides. So before we do that, I've gone ahead to cut out the piece for my belt. This is what I want to use for my belt, okay? So what I have here measures 34 inches in length, but I want one of this piece to be short. So I have two pieces here, but I want one of this to be short. So I'm going to measure one of them to end at 24 inches instead, while the long one is 34. So we have the long piece at 34, we have the short piece at 24. So they are not of the same length, okay? That's because they'll be coming from different angles. So you need one to be longer while the other one will be short. All right. So we want to cut this, right, give it like a little bit of shape, a little bit of character, so that it is looking nice. You don't want it to be looking all plain and boring. So what I'll do is to place both of them together, ensuring the edges are matching. Okay, you know, one is longer than the other, yeah, but ensure at one point that they are matching. And I'm just using my free hand to make a curve into the other end, like so. All right, so you can decide to curve it whatsoever way you wish to. So I just use my free hand to curve that, and I'm going to take out the part I marked. So this is what you're going to have, right? So what I want to do is to fold this up. I'll go over to the machine. All right, fold this up. Sorry, I didn't give you the measurement I have. So on the width, I have 7 inches because I want to have 3 inches at the end of the day. So what I have is 7 inches for my width. So by the time I fold this and stitch it, turn it to the right side, I should have 3 inches on the side. So I'll go ahead and fold this up on the wrong face and then stitch it down, leaving a part open to flip it. So I've done that. I've also gone ahead to iron it out. So you need to give this a proper ironing, okay? I'm going to leave the long part aside, and we're going to work on the short one because that's what we want to work on now. So I'm bringing back my piece, which is for my the piece that is for my wrap. I'll bring in my piece, and then I'm going to place my belt on it like so. So I'm placing the belt on the straight part of this. Ensure you place it on the straight part. I'm going to place it on the straight part of this, after which I'll go ahead and tuck it inside. Then bring my lining piece, place them together. Now you can see how I'm putting the lace mouth inside. It is important to put it inside. Then you're going to also tuck in your lace by the side, especially at the edge, so that it is not disturbing you. So ensure you tuck it at the edge and go ahead and stitch it down. Leave an opening at a point to turn it over to the right side, okay? So this is what it looks like after I finish doing that. This is what we have. I've gone ahead to iron this down. So ensure you iron this down. So don't forget to stitch the top part of this. You need to stitch it close at the top, okay? That's just for your wrap piece. Ensure you stitch it close at the top. All right. So you want to ensure that the belt is at the edge of your skirt. So you should get to the top. Okay, you can see the mistake I made there. I'll go on later to correct that. So this is my front piece. I finished doing the same thing. I flipped it over with my lace and my lining. I went ahead to iron it down. You can see how this looks. Okay, this is what it looks like. This is the front. I'll keep this aside and I'll bring in my back piece. So I'm gonna have to do the same thing like I did for the other piece. I stitched it down. So you can see my back piece. This is how it is looking like. You can see the linings are matching perfectly. You should match, okay, so that you're not doing a rough work. So I'm going to place my back piece front part to front part. I'll just place both of them together and I'll align them properly. Okay, so I ensure they are matching. You can also make use of your pins at this point. So be friendly with your pins. Ensure you're friends with your pins. Okay, then after doing that, I will just turn this over to the other side so that you can see the marks I'm going to make. Now remember I made a notch earlier to indicate my zip allowance. Okay, the next thing I'm going to mark is the length of my zip, which is 8 inches. Remember I'm attaching this to the top. All right, then the next thing I'll mark is my knee. Remember I said earlier I wanted my slit to start from the knee point, so that is just what I marked from the waist to the knee, 18 inches. I just marked it down, right? Then that is where my slit will start from down to the full length of this. Now for the stitching allowance of this, I used 1 inch for my zip allowance. I've already exhausted quarter of an inch, which I use to flip this over to the right side. So what I'll do is just use the remaining I have, that is 0.75, and I will use that to stitch it at that point from my 8 inches point of the zip to where my knee will start. So this is what it looks like after I stitch it down. I just pin the top to keep it in place so that it's not moving, and this is what it looks like. You can see what it looks like. Okay, so what I want to do is to stitch this down at this point so that it's not going to loosen. All right, so you need to stitch it down. So I have one piece of the back folded while the other ones is flattened. So I'll just place the folded one on top of the flattened one and go ahead and run a stitch across both of them. So this is what it looks like. You can see how this looks like. Okay, this is what you should have. So now we want to join our piece together, all our piece together. Now here comes the main part of our skirt. So I'll place the front part of my skirt firstly, right side facing me, and then bring in my wrap piece right side facing up. The right side is also facing up for my front piece, and I'm aligning the parts with the hip, that's the parts with the curve, with the parts with the curve for my front parts. So ensure you take notes of how I'm aligning this piece properly. Okay, so you need to face your right side of your front to face you, the right side of your wrap piece to face you. Then we'll bring in our belt, that's the longer part of our belt, and then place it on the other part of our wrap. So this is being placed on the curved parts. You can see how I'm placing this. This is where it should sit. This is where it should sit. Okay, so I place this half of an inch away from my I place this half of an inch away from the top up part, that's the right side. Okay, and I'll just tuck in the longer part inside. Then I will introduce my back piece, which I've already stitched together. I'm going to bring it together and then align all of them together. So that's why I said this is the main part of this. So I'm going to align all my pieces together, ensuring that they are meeting properly, ensuring that where the lining of the back stops is where the lining of the front stops. they need to be aligning properly. And then I'm going to place all of them together and go ahead and pin them together. So they are all stacked together, and I will just place them together and pin them throughout. So you pin from the waist down, so you need to be friendly with your pins. So what you want to do is pin them down throughout, keep them in place. And after doing that, so remember I used 2 inch for my inseam allowance. I've already exhausted half of an inch on all my piece. So what I have is 1.5 inch. Okay. So after placing, pinning them together like so, I'll go ahead and stitch it together by 1.5 inch. Okay, then on the other side I will tuck in my wrap piece. Now remember, the wrap doesn't need to be stitched down on the other side. That's the straight side of the wrap should be inside. You should tuck it inside when you're about to stitch. So I'll do the same thing like I did for my other end. I will make use of my pins, pin it down at the right places, ensure they are placed properly, ensure that they are matching together properly. And after pinning down, I'll go ahead and stitch by 1.5 inch. So I've stitched it down. This is what our skirt looks like. Okay, this looks very, very, very nice. You can see how the wrap skirt came out. You can see how nice this is. So later on, I'll be dropping a video on the channel of how I made the top part. So if you want to see the complete version of this gown, subscribe to this channel. If you're yet to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up. Okay, just let me know of your thoughts in the comment section. But if you're making this as a skirt, just go ahead and add your zip and you have this all down. All right, so thank you for watching. Do well to subscribe if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.